everyone, and welcome to our show today for Digital Tools for the Art Room. My name is Whitney York, and I'll be your lead host today. I'm so excited. We have a full panel here today of our KY Go Digital live team. So excited to see everybody, almost everybody here. We have Heather Worrell, who's the Executive Administrator for Digital Innovation and a consultant for KDE Library Media Specialist. Hey, Heather. We have Elaine Abinatha, who is the Digital Innovation Leader for JCPS. Allison Langley, who is a teacher and special education facilitator at Hardin County Schools. Letitia Sparks, in charge of programs and partnerships at the Kentucky Educational Development Corporation. Okay. Courtney DeRosset, field staff for the Kentucky Department of Education in her new role. Excited to have you here, Courtney. And then not pictured below, but Amy Buss is also joining us. She's going to be in on the YouTube chat. And Amy is a technology resource teacher at Warren County Schools. How is everybody?
Good. Great. Glad to be here.
Yay. All right. We are joined today by two KY Go Digital leaders very close to my home, in my home district. And so let me introduce you to these two amazing teachers. I don't want to take a lot of time. I want to let them have all the time in the world. But Gena Maley, who is an art teacher at Murray Middle School in Murray Independent. Emily Chipman, who is an art teacher at Murray High School in Murray Independent. So let me just tell you all, we are so lucky to have these two art teachers in our school district. And I was thinking about what could we showcase that we've never done before? What is something kind of new and innovative that everyone can learn from? And this is it. The digital tools for the art room, this is it. These ladies cover everything from what they use with their students, to what they use outside to connect with other educators. And let me tell you, the art teacher community has got it going on. They're going to share some amazing resources, and there's lots of ways for art teachers to learn. So I'm so excited. We are going to be taking questions today on the YouTube live chat. So make sure you drop in on the YouTube live chat and introduce yourself and let us know what school district, what county, what state you're from. If you don't have chat, make sure you click up at the top and log into YouTube. And while you're there, make sure you subscribe to kygodigital.com. So I think Allison and Courtney and Amy will be over on the YouTube live chat taking questions. Also watch Twitter. So we are going to get started, and I'm going to let Gena and Emily start. And I think, Gena, you're going to start. Ready?
You're ready.
All right, go for it. And you just let me know when you're ready for me to share your slides.
Okay, well, good morning. I'm glad to be doing this. I'm really excited about it. This is my 22nd year to teach, so when I first started, we didn't have any of this. So it's amazing how far we've come and how far I know we're going to continue to go. So I'm excited to share with you a little bit about the things I'm doing with my students in my classroom, not only for myself, but sharing with other art teachers as well. We do a lot of networking. So we're going to start with a little bit about what's going on in my classroom. And Whitney's going to help me out and share some of the slides that we put together for you so you can see some visuals. Directly behind me is my art room. As you can see, it's kind of long and narrow. On the first slide, we see basically the art room without any students. But what you notice is that there's a lot of tables, and I want to make sure that they can see what's going on when I'm doing demonstrations and that kind of thing. So I've always been really careful to avoid demonstrating so that their backs are placed to the demonstration or the board. And so in this type of classroom, I decided it would be best to have multiple viewing screens. So in the next slide, it's going to show several screens. I actually have 3 televisions and a large projector screen. And those 3 televisions are hooked to a document camera. It's also hooked to 2 different computers. I can also hook it to an Apple TV. So I have a lot of different ways that I can demonstrate things and for students to see. So that slide basically shows you, I think like 3 different television screens are up. And usually when the students come in, they take a seat, and their bell ringer, so to speak, is to write down their vocabulary word and to read out their learning target. And we do a lot of art literacy. I want my students to be able to use those vocabulary terms and understand what's going on, not only when they're creating, but when they're talking about art and writing about art. So wherever they sit, they're going to be able to look up and see one of those screens easily and be able to write their learning target or write their vocabulary. In the next slide, it shows basically a little bit bigger screen. And a lot of times I will put up a demonstration exemplary model for the students to see whatever it is they're going to be working on. Maybe it's something we are in progress with and they need to see a little bit closer, or just be reminded this is the project you need to pull out of your folder. All of the students have their own personal portfolio folders. When they come in, I have a student in charge of passing those out, and then they can quickly get their work out. So there's not a lot of downtime. I have 5 different grade levels, so I want to get students in and get them working quickly and utilize that time as much as possible. And a lot of times the kids will come in, especially new students, and say, why have you got all these screens? And I said, well, it is a visual arts room, and you've really got to be able to see things in order to best understand what's going on. So on that slide, you're going to see the larger screen has an example of the work that the students are currently working on, and then the learning target and their vocabulary. And sometimes we'll pop a little photo up too of students in progress of working on their art, just to remind them, this is what I need to look like. I need to be working on this project. The next slide basically is just showing the other side of the room. And you're seeing, again, another screen. So basically, when I'm doing some type of demonstration, like, for example, 1-point perspective drawing, we do a lot of guided drawing in the beginning of that so they can understand how to do it. And I don't want the students to have to turn around and have to look at a screen and then turn back around and look at their work. So they can just glance up at the screen and keep facing their spot as they're working, and they can easily see what's going on. The next screen is basically a screenshot of one of my instructional videos. And the digital camera that I utilize has the ability to record, but I often will sometimes use my iPhone or iPad to record as well. There's lots of different devices you can use to do that, so you don't necessarily have to have a document camera. But I will record a lot of my videos. I'm working on making kind of a instructional video library. I'm placing a lot of those videos on YouTube and creating bit.ly links so that students can access those even if they were in the classroom while I did the demonstration. A lot of times they want to go back and review it or pause it and slow it down so they can kind of go at their own pace. It's also a really good tool if a student's been out or absent and they totally missed the demonstration. It allows me to let them look at that while I'm still working with other students, and then I can come check in on them and see if there's questions. But it's a really good tool. I mean, those videos could even be accessed by students at home. So if they want to go back and try some of the projects on their own, they've got a resource there. On the next slide, I'm showing mainly the physical equipment that I have in the room, and this is a really cool cart for digital media, which can be iPads, it can be Chromebooks. It holds a lot of different types of devices. And the brand is called Lock and Charge. And what's really cool about it, all of the devices are held in baskets. And they're really sturdy. And they've got really big handles on top. And I number all of my iPads. And each of my classes, I have a seating chart, and the students are assigned a particular number. Well, they know that when it's time to check out an iPad, they always get that particular number. But those baskets will also allow, if I need to, maybe I have one student go up and get a basket and take it over to one group that's working. So you don't have to have a whole bunch of students getting up out of their seats at one time. So that, I think it's really flexible. It gives you a lot of different ways that you can move the iPads back and forth between the cart and the students. And also, they don't all have to be out at once, but they're really easy to use. The cart is also a syncable cart. So Whitney's really great to help me out whenever I need to add an app on one of the iPads. I can send her a message and say, I need this app. And she can basically sync it directly to all the iPads at once. So they don't have to be downloaded one at a time. But
is it okay to stop right here? We have a couple questions from the chat. We have several people joining us, so hello to everybody that's joining us. But one question that we have from Chris Lacey is, what program is being used to record the video?
Are you talking about the instructional video?
Yeah, on the document camera.
Well, the document camera just has a record button, so it's not really a program. Same thing if I utilize my phone, I just use the video recording.
I would say on that document camera thing, I've had some math teachers use whatever kind of document camera you have. If you'll pull your document camera up and use Screencastify, you can record whatever's going on under your document camera with Screencastify, whether yours has the record button or not, because Gena has a really cool document camera that has that, but some of my teachers have a $30 document camera and they can do that as well. So they do math demonstrations using Screencastify and that document camera, but it's just connecting those two apps together.
And if you need to edit the video, I usually just roll with it because that's what I do in the classroom, and my students are used to those kind of videos. You know, sometimes we're going to bobble and make mistakes. That's what teachers do too. But if I want to edit it, then oftentimes I'll use the iMovie to edit it. And if you have an iPhone, that's a common free app that automatically comes on your phone. It's really easy to utilize. On the next slide, I'm showing a screenshot, and that screenshot is actually my iPad, the teacher iPad, and it's showing an app called Apple Classroom. And I put a little icon there for you to see what it looks like. It is a free app through Apple, and it allows me to basically control all of the iPads that are in the cart. There are 30 total iPads, and just like I said earlier, each student is assigned a number. So I know instantly just by looking at my seating chart who's got number 27, for example. And I can see what they're doing at all times. I can see the whole class, or I can click on an individual number. And if I do that on the next screen, it shows, for example, I think it's 27 that's showing. It's a little bit hard to see. That particular student is on YouTube because you see the YouTube icon, but there's other buttons there that I can basically take over and control what's going on their iPad. So if I want to send them a link, I can do that to the whole class. I can send that to an individual student. If I want to send them to a particular app, for example, if we're going to be using iMovie or iMotion or something like that, and I just want them to see it instantly, I can send it to them. But I can also mute their iPad. I can also do a screen view. So if I click that, and I think the next slide shows this, it's pretty much in real time. There's just a tiny delay, but I can see instantly that on YouTube, that student is viewing a drawing video. So it's a really good tool. The students know that we use it. And one of the ways that I use it most often when it comes time to clean up, my students are very engaged. They're very excited about what's going on. They don't like to clean up and leave. So like, our time is up, we have to go. So if I kind of give them a little bit of a warning and I say, I'm going to shut your iPads down if you don't start taking them back to the cart and start cleaning up. And so on occasion, I will have to do that. And it'll say, your iPad's been locked by Mrs. Maley. And you hear a bunch of, like that. But I'm like, it's okay. You get to come back tomorrow. We'll keep going. But it's a really good tool. Like I said, it's a free app. There are some other types of programs out there that help control Google Chromebooks. I know Whitney has told me about some of those. Because I happen to have iPads in my room, this is just a really good tool to utilize. I think on the next slide, it's showing some ways that the students are using the iPads, and this is one of the apps that I use a lot, and it's a program and it's a website, and it's called Sonia. And every student in Murray Middle School, 4th through 8th grade, we have 660 students right now, they all have an online digital portfolio, and they start it when they come to me in 4th grade. The really cool thing about it is if they've had an Sonia account at another school, it's easily transferable. It's totally free. And the great thing about the website is you can upload artwork to it, and the parents instantly receive an email that day saying that your child has created a new artwork and has uploaded, and they'd love for you to view it. And the parents can see the student's work, they can reply back to it, they can give comments on it. It's a really amazing site. And I like to use it as a way to show growth for my students, because they are with me from 4th all the way through 8th grade. And Emily is now including Sonia at the high school level, They can continue to add to their portfolio. It moves with them as they travel grade to grade, and that's automatic. I don't really have to do any of that. They're really great to work with if I need to add a new whole grade level, like my fourth graders are always a new group of students. I can send them a spreadsheet with the names and they instantly make their accounts for me. So it's really helpful. Any questions I've ever had and I contact them, they're really great to reply back to me. So this slide is showing me explaining how the students can upload their own art to Sonia. And this is one of the last days, and we're actually doing a critique session in this photo. And the students have some of their actual artwork on the table, and they're using their iPads to make a photograph of it and upload it. And they were supposed to be writing an artist statement to go with their artwork. And then the last part of their critique was that they were going to present their work, and they could do that using an Apple TV. They could just sit right at their seat and project their iPad to the big screen using the Apple TV, or they could stand up if they want and stand in front of the room. But some of them like to just sit at their seats. They're more likely to do that sometimes and then not get up in front of the class. So that helps them, still be involved. The next slide, it shows there's a QR code. And a lot of times when we do this type of critique session, I don't want kids popping up out of their seats and run over to the board. So I'll put the QR code sheets on the tables for them. And all they have to do is open up the Sonia app, hold their iPad over the QR code, and it instantly takes them to the Murray Middle School part of that site. And they type their name in, it takes them to their portfolio, and then they can add their own artwork. There is a link on there. I'm trying to remember what that is. It's kind of small. I can't remember. I'm thinking it's I know what it is. It's an example of some of the artist statements that the students wrote. So if you want to click on that link, it will take you to just a few examples of some of those. And what's really cool about the artist statement part, I can type prompts in. So when they do get on the app and go into their portfolio, they've got these prompting sentences that don't show when they actually type their own statement, but it helps to guide them a little bit, guide their thinking as they're writing. Or I might give them some reminders, be sure to include the vocabulary, related to your project. But it's a really great way, not only for students to store their art, but to communicate with families and the community. Anybody, it's basically a public site, can go on and view the work. The parents just have to approve that their students' work can be seen, and that's just through an email. And we usually have about 90% approval here at Murray Middle School. Now, I do really push it, and I encourage the parents to be a part of it. And it is actually a fundraiser as well. And I know a lot of people, when they first start out, say, look, I don't have a whole cart of iPads. And I didn't. I started out with like 4. And I actually used part of the money that I get from Sonia to purchase more iPads. I also wrote some grants. So it is a way that you can also build funding for your program. There is an area on the website of Sonia where parents can buy products with their students' art on it. Now,
Allison, did you say you did that?
I'm sorry, repeat that.
Allison, did you say you were buying your kids' artwork? Have you said you've done that before? Yeah. Yeah, it's, yes. I think, is it on the next slide?
Christmas ornaments, prints, coffee mugs. Like, listen, we have probably funded your classroom because Mama buys all the precious, sweet little things. Sonia is amazing. And I love that, we can also share the link with, grandparents, too, so they can see the artwork and make comments on it. As a parent, I love, love, love Sonia.
Thank you for saying that. Yeah, absolutely. The kids can create what's called a fan club, and they can invite fan club members. They can invite grandparents, aunts, uncles, friends, whoever wants to be a part of their fan club. All they have to do is send an email link, and then every time they upload a new artwork, anyone who's in their fan club gets that email. And we had a student whose dad was stationed overseas in Afghanistan, and when he was uploading his work, his dad was getting photos of his art, and he could comment back to him. And when he came back, he was so excited to tell me what a cool thing that was for him, because it really gave a little connection with his child while he was gone. And he could still see some of the great things that his child was doing at school. But it really is a great site. And I don't want to just push the products because that's a plus, but they are really good products. We've got a teacher here who has one of the necklaces, and she's got a bracelet, and she's got 2 different sons. And so the necklace, she has her artworks from one son, and then the bracelet, she wears artworks from another. And you can actually buy these little magnetized jewelry pieces of the artworks, and you can pop them in and out and change them. And I've also seen the iPhone cases, which the 8th graders love those. They are really good quality. All of the products that I've seen are great quality. And they also have really good sales. So around Christmas time and Mother's Day or Valentine's, they're going to have really great sales, so that some of those parents who maybe couldn't normally buy a product may be able to do it at that time. And there's even things like bookmarks and magnets. So it's not all like really expensive products, but they're really good and it's really fun. And I've also had some students get a t-shirt with their art on it, and they come walking in the art room, and they're so proud to have a t-shirt with their art. So it's really just another fun way to share what they're doing and to build that basic self-esteem of what they're doing in the classroom.
We do have a question on that. Is it compatible with Chromebooks? So can the students use a Chromebook to take pictures of their work and upload it that way?
Absolutely, yes. So it's not exclusive to Apple or iPad or anything like that. And actually, when I first started Art Sonia, I didn't even have an iPhone, and I didn't have an iPad. So you can use a regular digital camera, anything you can use to take a photo. All you have to do is be able to either plug it into your computer and upload it, or upload it some way through Wi-Fi, something like that. But yes, any device that basically takes a picture and enables you to then get it into the computer, even if it's through email or whatever, because all you're doing is basically uploading that photo to the website. So there's a lot of different ways to do that.
Stephanie Wade on chat, she had a great idea about how the district could share this on their social media sites to give you all awesome PR, again, tell that story about what awesome things you're doing. So I know this is the first time I've heard of this, so I can't wait to share it with my own children's teachers, but with some other districts, about this is an easy share, an easy win to just share that on their social media. So thanks, Stephanie, for that idea.
Awesome. Yeah, as I said, it's a free site, so it costs nothing. I mean, how often do you get great sites for free, and it's going to benefit your students? And you don't have to be an art teacher. Any teacher can set up an account and do that. So we have in the past had a teacher create an art project. I think it was like a science project, and they uploaded all the different science projects on there. But it is mainly for art. So when you go on, there are some links to it I've got at the end too. You're welcome to look at those and just kind of browse. They also have lesson plans. I can put my lesson plans on there. I can click the standards. They're already there for me. And it's a really good way, a tool really for me as well. If I need to go back and show examples of work, it's all there for me. It's got several years of student work and examples that I can access easily. And it's another way to collaborate too, because you can see what other art teachers are doing, even in Japan. It's all over the world. So it's really cool to see that. I think the next slide is still just a part of that critique session that we were doing. And I think that shows a student who came up with their art, they put it under the digital camera, they read out their artist statement, and then they were taking questions from the panel, which was the students in the classroom. So that's one of the reasons why I enjoy having these different screens. That large screen in the center, it goes up and down throughout the day for various reasons, and I do utilize the board as well. So it's a really great way to just have a good variety and choice about what I want to show, what the students are going to show, and how it's displayed. So it's a really good way to do that.
And y'all, I think for every classroom out there, what Gena has done in her classroom is said, this one screen in the front of my room does not work. I need a better projector so I don't have to turn the lights off and on all day long. I need other screens. I need other things. So when it comes time to make decisions about, oh, everybody's going to get this replacement or that replacement. Gena has said, no, like I want these things, or I want this different thing. And so one size does not fit all in any of our classrooms. And I think in every classroom, we need to make sure whatever technology we're putting up there, we're thinking about how students learn and where they're looking and where they're sitting. And I think this is a great example of a classroom that, and we all know really TVs, I mean, they're not thousands and thousands of dollars anymore. Of course, it takes a little bit to mount them and run cables, but this could be done in other classrooms. So you have multiple screens. So just a great idea for any classroom.
Thanks, Whitney. That next slide is again another example of a student showing their work. We'd like to present, and I think that also builds their self-esteem and being proud of what they've accomplished, and just showing how they've grown from the beginning of the project to the end. The next slide is showing how my students will often utilize an iPad. I mean, they'll go up to a computer screen and do this too, but this is just an example of how they can enhance the art they're already doing, and they're just utilizing the iPad as a tool. And I like to say that any of the things that are in my room are just one other tool in the creative toolbox to help students demonstrate their knowledge, to help students be more creative. It's no different than a paintbrush or an oil pastel. An iPad is just another tool that students use to create with. And this photo shows a student who loves to draw cars, but likes to get really detailed with it. And he was trying to do a good value scale drawing. So he pulled up the photograph of the car, and then we used the iPad to change it over into a grayscale value. And that allowed him to see better where those different values were so that he could create those in his drawing. The next slide, it shows a student who is using the iPad to look up different patterns and designs to enhance what he's already doing in his work. So in that project, it's called like a Zentangle design. He was supposed to develop different types of patterns, and just using the iPad as a visual reference tool to add more different designs, maybe that he might not have thought of. The next slide is an example of a website that we use a lot in the classroom. It's called Art for Kids Hub. And this is a really good tool when students want to draw something in particular, and I can't run around and show every student how to draw what they want to draw that day. So a student might want to draw a dog, another student wants to draw a rabbit. So it's not something that I can just set in front of my document camera and say, okay, everybody's going to draw a rabbit today. I want to give them choices. So this particular website, Art Hub for Kids, they could click on that site, type basically what they want, Art Hub for Kids dog or poodle or goat or whatever, llama. Llamas are popular right now. And it will show them a how-to video. It's like having another teacher. It's really awesome. And they can sit there, they can pause it and watch as that person demonstrates how to draw it. There's Fortnite characters on it too. Kids love that. So basically it's another art teacher in a way. And it allows them to kind of go at their own pace and follow that video. So Art Hub for Kids. And I've got several of these links at the end. The next slide is an app that we utilize called Symmetry Lab. And all these apps that I'm telling you about today, most of these are all free. And this is a really great, easy to use app, especially for younger students. This particular project is showing all the different colors from the color wheel. They were supposed to use the primaries and secondaries. That included a variety of lines and also geometric shapes. And it created its own symmetry. And they can change the colors, they can change the brush style, but it's kind of a simple app to use, but it's really fun. The next one is also a symmetrical radial symmetry app, and it's called a Mazyograph. And the reason I like this one, you can actually change the pressure of the brush. So it gives you a little bit more feel of what a brush is actually going to be like if you're going to use it in paint, or if you're going to use a wider brush or a fine tip brush. So it gives a little bit more tools. And so for a little bit older students, this one's really good. And you can also change the different types of symmetry that you have. You could have like butterfly symmetry, for example, instead of radial symmetry. The next slide is an app called Adobe Sketch. And our students were studying Kandinsky. And if you don't know that artist, he's an abstract artist who his family was composers. So he was trying to create artwork that would look like music if you could see it. And so they had to include a variety of lines, colors, shapes, and so on. And they actually did a real painting based on his style. but to also get an idea of what their painting might look like, they could use Adobe Sketch and basically go through the different criteria that they were supposed to do for the real painting and do like a little practice one. I've also utilized this for early finishers. So if they get done with their painting and they want to go back and do a digital version, or if I were to change my painting, what would I do differently next time? This is a great way to do that. And it also has a good variety of brush tools and so on that. The next slide is an app called Quiver, and it's an augmented reality app. It comes with, you go to their website and you can print off different sheets, and you use those sheets and the students create drawings on those sheets. This was a particular sheet for Dot Day. If you don't know what that is, there's a book called The Dot, and there is a Dot Day that we celebrate usually each year. And it's basically talking about how a dot can become anything. And it's just how creative you want to be with it. So they drew on their dot on the sheet, and then using the iPad, they just hold it over and it basically grows up out of the page and levitates, and they can move it around. They can walk around the classroom. They can create different types of games and play the games with the dot that they made. And you can make a video of your dot. You can share your dot with other people. It's a really fun little video type of augmented reality app. The next one is one of my favorites, and it's a pottery app. It's actually called Pottery. And a lot of times I'll do this with my students for early finishers because it's just really fun. They like to compete. They make their own pottery on it. And you go through the process just like if you were a real potter. So you're pulling the clay on the wheel, you have to fire it, you decorate it using glazes, and then you sell it at auction. So the kids compete to see who can sell theirs for the most. But the really cool thing about it is my 7th graders actually do clay. So they get kind of a sense of what those different processes are like. And I'll say, you need to enjoy using the app because this is the easy way to do clay. You're about to really get your hands in it and understand it's a little more challenging. But they still get a sense of the different types of processes. So I like for them to use this. On the next slide, it actually shows a little bit of the different processes that you go through on the app. So they kind of get an idea. It's not something that you can just whip out either, like Play-Doh. You do have to make it, you have to fire it, you have to glaze it. So it takes a little while, and this app helps them to see that. The next one is what I call app smashing. And if you haven't heard that term, it's where you use multiple apps to get the ultimate goal accomplished. And some of my students were creating stop motion videos. And they had to create their own scene, their own setting, their own characters, their own storyline. They had to include some type of music or some type of speaking parts. And so they used iMotion, which is also a free app video, and iMovie to edit it. And so they also some of them use GarageBand, which is another app to create music on, which you can compose your own music, you can record your voice, and so on. But there is an example of one of the iMotion movies created by these students. They worked in groups, and I think there's a link to it. Are we going to show that, Whitney?
Yeah, here we go.
Okay.
I don't know if you're going to be able to hear it, but there's music behind it. Imagine Christmas music. But what I want to show while we're on this, while I have that pulled up, is this is our Sonia too, that her video is on. And I think this is a really cool view. This is what I was looking for earlier. You can see, I'm going to click on this student's artworks. You can see her fan club up at the top. You can see all of her artwork, and then you can click on any of that artwork and order products with that artwork on it. So like this is one student's gallery, but then all the art is also kind of organized by types of project for Gena. So she can pull up like all of the projects from 4th grade and all of the projects from this. So, but this is one student's gallery, and it can include videos. So we actually, I know the time has already passed for STLP digital projects, but we have never been a school that submitted a lot of STLP projects. And And this year, for the first time, we're submitting several digital art projects. And these were some of the movie we submitted, like I think in the movie category, these stop motion movies that students had made. So there's a lot of really cool integration with technology and art and storytelling here. I watched all these kids' little stop motions, and it is incredible, incredible. They're so creative.
They really had a blast. On the next slide, it shows a group of students, and you can actually see all of these videos if you click on those links that I have at the end. You can go to the Art Sounion and just click stop motion. It's going to show all the different videos, but this particular picture shows a group, and they were doing these little frogs, and they were trying to figure out how to make tongues for the frogs that would come out and grab flies. And they figured out, oh, we're going to make the tongues out of red yarn, and then we're going to pull the yarn out of the frogs with fishing lines to make it look like they're reaching out for the flies. So it was just really fun to see how they were kind of problem solving to come up with their idea. And also they had to take different roles. You know, one's creating the set, one's actually taking the photos, and then, but still working together as a group. So it was a really great project. The next slide, and I'm just going to talk briefly about this. We have an arts night each year at our school, and this just shows what our hallway looks like during arts night, which it's packed and it's awesome. But you cannot possibly see everything that goes on just from coming and looking at the art on the walls. So I like to make a video presentation. I use iMovie to do that, and it shows not only examples of artworks, but also students of using the creative process and what they're doing in the art room throughout the year. So at the end of that night, we have a presentation, and the next slide actually shows in the cafeteria, we have like cookies and lemonade, and we give out art awards, and we do a short little video presentation just to give the parents more of a feel of what it's like in the art room. And the next slide, it shows one of the students receiving an award. And when they receive that award, we show the art that they received the award for really large on the screen, and everybody claps, and it's really awesome. And, you know, the kids are just really proud of what they accomplish. And on the next slide, it shows the Art Sonia homepage. And there is a link at the bottom of that that you can click on and go back and explore a little bit more. That takes you directly to the Murray Middle School site. But there are lots of different schools that are on there. And the next slide shows an example of what Whitney showed us a few moments ago. It's a student, a current student, and their current portfolio. So you can click on that and just see some examples. It's really cool to see some of the statements that have been written out by the parents and so on. And then the last few slides that I have are basically just resources and links that I wanted to share. There's millions out there. But like I said, I've been doing this for 22 years. When I first started, nothing like this existed. And I felt like I was just a lone person on a lonely island. I was one art teacher in a school, and being able to make connections and collaborate with other art teachers is huge. And so I've included lots of different online resources. The next page, I'm not sure where we are, which slide we're on. Looks like I've also added a few of the apps. But like I said, there's lots out there. These are just a few that I've used that work really well, and most of these are free. The next slide shows several of my Pinterest boards that I'm sharing some of the things that I do. I know a lot of teachers use Pinterest, and for art teachers especially, it's a really great way to share visuals and links and so on. And then the final slide that I have to share are basically Facebook groups that I am a part of personally. These are private groups that you ask to join, and it's strictly for art teachers, which if you want to learn more about art and you're not an art teacher, you could also join that, so you could find out ways to integrate art. But these are all really great ways to collaborate and interact and network with other teachers, so you don't feel like that lonely person, one person on an island. And the next slide, I'm going to send it over to Emily. She and I we are part of an art cohort, and this was at an art show. My mom actually took this picture of us. I was like, you know, that's the perfect picture, because we are always deep in thought. What are we going to do next with our students? So with that, I'm going to send it over to Emily.
Thanks, Gena. Gena's great. I'm going to piggyback on a lot of the things that Gena has talked about. I do a lot of the same things. I use Art Sonia some. It's a little different because my classes are mixed. I'll have a class. I teach high school, first of all. So I might have a class with 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th graders. So it's a little more interesting trying to collect information, but being able to receive the students that graduate up to the 9th grade is really easy. We had a little issue with Sonia at the beginning, and all I had to do was call them. And while I was on the phone with her, less than 3 minutes, she had everybody transferred over to me. So it's really good. All right, so the next slide, I have digital tools that I use. A lot of them are some of the links that Gena has already talked about. We do stop motion animation now, thanks to my student teacher that I had last semester, Kimberly Kinsland. She's amazing. I was a little nervous about doing it, and she gave me the, the cheerleading encouragement to go ahead and try it. And she had some really great ideas. If you haven't had a student teacher in a while, I would definitely recommend it, because I learned as much from her as I hope she learned from me. So we did some stop motion animation using just an app called Stop Motion. And it was really easy because you could edit and film in the same app. You could add the audio. It was all in one kind of thing. The only issue is if the device, like let's say they have using their phone and they don't have a lot of storage space, it limits what they can download to share then with me. But it doesn't take up any space on their device until they download it to share it. But that would be the only drawback.
And Emily, you don't have a class set of iPads. So I know it's not on this slide, but you have the students use a variety of devices, right?
Yes, I only have 3 classroom iPads. So what I used before I had iPads and what I use to kind of supplement that is either their students' own cell phones, or I check out Chromebooks. We have several Chrome carts that we check out for various activities, but I find that in the absence of having a whole room of iPads, their phones are good substitutes. They can get the app. A lot of these apps they can get on their own phone. I use those for everything from Kahoot. If you're not familiar with Kahoot, we'll get into that in a minute. Kahoot is a way to quiz them on terms like art terms, or if we've been studying art history, I can flash up images of the artwork and ask questions. They really like to be competitive with each other, even if it doesn't matter or doesn't mean anything. They just want to be competitive, and Kahoot's a good way to review because they want to see that they are beating their other classmates. So whatever. So next slide. Again, I use a lot of Google, and that's what I'm going to talk about. This slide just kind of compartmentalizes the ways that I use them, but I'm going to get into more details using the pictures. If you are not Google certified, that is the best way to learn about how to use all these tools. Our district, thanks to Whitney, does a lot of the trainings for that, and it really helps teachers that may be a little nervous about using these new tools gain mastery over them, because they are very user-friendly. The students have apps on their phone that allow them to connect to Google Classroom. If I post something on Google Classroom, it immediately alerts them and they know what to expect and when it's due, and it's great. I plan on using it a lot more in the future. All right, next slide. Google Forms is something I use a whole lot. I use it for well, let's see. I've got it on my phone. I use it for my own personal things. Like if I'm trying to keep track of whether I did some things a certain way. I use it for evaluating. I can also coach cross country. If I'm trying to decide what days are good for summer practices, I send out an email to all the parents and they can fill out this quick little survey and I get it back. I use it for making labels for art shows. We have an annual art show, and if I have the students fill out all their information about their artwork in Google Forms, all I have to do is click a button and it generates a spreadsheet, and then I can print them, and I don't have to spend hours on labels, which I've done eventually. A lot of the things that I'm sharing come from how can I make this less difficult for me? How can I make better use of my time? And Google Forms has been huge. I also sponsor the National Art Honor Society, which we just call the Art Club because it gets confusing with the National Honor Society. But I use Google Forms as my sign-in sheet because, again, I go into the responses and click, and I can make a spreadsheet, and it automatically tells me who was there, who wasn't there, and it timestamps it and dates it. If I want them to give me their email address, it automatically feeds into that spreadsheet, and I can contact them quickly about any questions I might have. Oh, my favorite use of that, let's go to the next slide, is my new use is using a Google form to make a QR code as a bathroom pass. I am a piler. I pile things in my room, and I really fight against it. And one of the things that I've struggled with in the past is trying to keep up with who's gone to the bathroom and how long they were gone. And I usually end up burying that sheet, and I'm not doing a good job of managing that. So I created a Google form and that is linked to a QR code, so they can literally take their phone, scan it, and it timestamps it and dates it of when they left. And when they get back, they can scan the bottom one, and that timestamps it of when they returned from the classroom. So all they have to enter into the form is their name, and then they can just go. Obviously, I limit how many people leave my room at a time, but I don't have to manage anything. It manages itself. So another thing I use them, next slide, is for artist statements. This is some pictures of them working on artist statements or in the class. Again, you can see there's 2 Chromebooks there as well as my iPads. They can fill out areas that I want them to talk about, because usually writing an artist statement, they kind of draw a blank about how to talk about their own artwork. So I will have guided questions to help them get started, and then over the course of the year, I'll start to take some of those away, but it helps teach them how to write about their artwork. All right, next slide. The other thing is we use Google Forms to turn in our stop motion animations. We created a bit.ly link that they were able to go to, again, using their phones or the classroom iPads or other devices at our school. And they were able to fill out even a little reflection about the processes and what was hard, what they enjoyed. And then we're able to create a download into the form of their piece, which means when I pulled up Google Drive, I could go to the responses and see everyone's pieces all there together. I'm not having to wonder, oh, who turned it in, who didn't turn it in, and it even had their name attached to it. So it was really made it really easy for me to refer back to for grading purposes. Next slide. Oh, you have a question? I have an example there. We don't have to watch it, but it doesn't have sound. But they were very inventive. Yeah, this is one of my sophomores. They had a person come in and steal candy from the Candyland, and then they all unite together to defeat their enemy. I love the use of aluminum foil in that one.
This is so creative. I think I walked in when they were working on this one day. And that's the thing about walking into classrooms when students are working on projects like this. 100% of kids are engaged. There was not one kid who was doing something different. Like, they all have their hands on something. They're all working. And every student is engaged in this product. And they're just interested in it. They've always loved, like, making their own things. And this is a great way to integrate technology into that.
Yeah.
Really.
And what we did to help collaborate and to save time with building sets is my student teacher suggested that they all work together in groups to build a common set based on a common theme. And then each student then had to produce their own movie using that set so that they are not hindered. We all know sometimes working in groups means that one person is doing a lot of the work, and that and having them all work on a common scene, but then each make their own individual movie, allowed for them to do well on their own or sink their ship on their own. So it was really good for them to have that. It was helpful because they enjoy working with their friends too. Next slide. I forgot. One of the things I use forms for too is for tests. We have black and white copy machines at the school. Well, if I'm teaching art history or color theory, it's kind of hard to ask questions about colors if it's in black and white. It's like looking at a painting book from the 1970s and all the paintings are in black and white, and it just seems like pointless. So I found with Google Forms, I can ask them specific color questions because there is a color image. And the added bonus is you can create points associated with each question, and it automatically grades it and sets up charts, and it records data in tables so that you can see how the students perform. And if you did that as a pre-test, I use this for pre-test at the beginning of the year. I test what they know at the beginning of the year. And then towards the middle of the year, after we've covered a lot of that stuff, I give it to them again, and I can easily compare the data on what they have learned because it generates a charts and tables, and it does the numbers for me. And they get to see it in color, and you can set settings so that they can see their score. They want to know what they made. They're used to knowing immediately, and so they can see automatically what they missed and why they missed it, and not wait for me to grade 60 papers and then give it back to them. It's really, really great. So this next slide has Google Slides. I use Google Slides as announcements, kind of like a living calendar, so to speak. I use it for displaying their tasks for the day. I call them daily goals. Maybe it's paint the eyes on your painting today, or get out your sketchbooks and write down this information about art history, or it could be vocabulary terms, but it tells them what they need to know for the day as they're walking in before the bell rings. I also use it for demonstrations, like I'll do step-by-step videos, and we can go through one at a time, which then takes us to our next slide. Using Google Classrooms, I plan on using it full scale next year. I've kind of been like easing into it this year, but I can post a step-by-step how-to video or a slide presentation showing the steps, so that if a student wants to go at their own pace, maybe they're a little slower or they miss some days, they can refer back to that. It's also easy for me then if someone's goes on homebound, I just tell them it's all on Google Classroom and reshare the link, and they have everything they need. They can communicate with me through that. I could create conversations. One of the ways I want to use it next year, or even into the semester this year, is to post articles, art-related articles with questions that they can respond to, so that I can quickly see all of their responses. Again, I'm a paper piler, and I'm trying to reduce the amount of papers I pile so that I can actually find it. If it's on the computer, I know I didn't lose it under a stack of artwork. It's always there. It's not going away. It self-saves, so I don't have to worry about hitting the save button. So I also have a problem with that, so it really is good.
I love the paper piler, because what you can't see in my office right now is like from here up, it's just piles of paper. So I'm with you. I don't know what any of this is. I have to keep it all digital. So
yes, I really want to be crazy organized, but there's a limit to what I'm capable of. I'm creative, and some of the organization goes to the wayside for me. So, all right, next slide. My student teacher, again, I can't take full credit for it, really made me fall in love with this program called Canva.com. It's like Canvas, but without the S. And you can design anything in here really quickly, and it looks really professional. And I use it for everything, for making a little Twitter thing to send out to my athletes like the day before a big race. I will use it on Remind, like I'll make a I'll do a quote with a fun background and I'll send it out to them so that while they're warming up and they may not be right with me, they can get a little note of encouragement while they're out on the course warming up. I have made worksheets that I have shared with the elementary school for collaboration project. I've made posters that I hang up in the hallway advertising art competitions. I even use these for rubrics and assignment directions, and they look really professional, and it doesn't take any time to do. Like, I have actually sped up my amount of time that I take in preparing classroom supplies. And I'm the kind of person that I can't do the same thing every year. Or if I do, I think, how can I make this better? So I'm not ever just doing it exactly like last year. And so Canva allows me to update, change really quickly. You can download it as a PNF file. You can download it as a PDF file. You can share it with other people. I have students, we have done assignments. Let's go to the next slide. One of my favorite ways to use Canva is we used it to make worksheets. We had these little reading prompts for creatures, and we sent them over to the elementary school, and they designed creatures, and they sent it back. In my 3D classes, I taught them how to sew, and they hand sewed these little monsters, and then we went and hand delivered them to them. And so it was really good for the students because they want to flake out and like not complete an assignment all the way, but they knew that there was a kid depending on them. And so it upped the stakes for them completing the project. They didn't want the kids to be disappointed. So
that is precious. I love it. You should hear Elaine in the next room oohing and ahhing over this. She keeps going, "Aw."
And my kids, like I got all kinds of comments from some of I have an elementary school kid, and some of my friends were messaging me that weekend after we gave them, and they're like, "Oh, my kid just loves this. They think it's the best thing." And my students at the high school level were actually really nervous about how they would be received by the elementary school.
So now I see stop motion animation with the creatures.
Yes, that could be cool.
Yeah.
All right, we'll just go through. I know we're starting to run out of time. We can go through, but another way, go to the next one. One more. All right, I also use Canva with my students as kind of an easy graphic design project. We do infographics about art-related careers. They get to pick one from a list that we have compiled. They don't just get to go random. But then they create an infographic and work through what makes good design. And they're able to produce a professional-looking product. The ones that make A's and B's, I tell them if they work hard, then I will reward them by actually getting it printed professionally so they look like professional digital pieces. All right, next slide. I also use photo editing. Most recently, I've been trying to teach myself how to use Adobe Photoshop. One of the things that I've struggled as an art teacher is how do I teach them how to see values when it comes easy to me? How do I describe what I do without thinking to students who just don't see it? So I've played around with editing photos so that you can isolate the values almost like a paint by number. And we use that as a scaffolding approach to starting to see it. It's really rewarding for me. This is new that I've tried this year, to have kids say, "Oh, now I see it." And using photo editing, it really helps with that. We also use it in that bottom left picture to make prints from photos. We'll just this is really basic, but we throw it in the image into Word, and using formatting tools, we just make it really high contrast to just white and black, and then it works great. It's really easy and approachable. The next slide. This is an example of a step-by-step thing that I've done. I just pulled the pictures from a slide presentation, but it breaks down every step. I just had to take pictures. So even if you don't have a way to do video, you could just take pictures of every step that you're doing and then just put it in a slides. I have 3 crazy kids at home, so it's really hard for me to have a time where there's not constant interruptions. So having just the picture format works is easier for me to do at this point. All right, next slide. one of the ways that I use scaffolding through technology is, this is a screenshot of one of my step-by-steps that I'm just now making, how to use the grid technique, so that if they didn't quite get it through the demonstrations or through me showing it, they can have this to rely back onto. All right, next one. There I have, we already showed the stop motion animation, but that's kind of a screenshot of all of their pieces. All right, next slide. One of the big things that you can use technology for is promoting your program. Our school district uses a Twitter challenge like #MurraySchools. The best way to promote your art programs is to self-promote. Look for ways to find connections. Like for me, working with the elementary school was really big, because now the elementary school kids are saying, I can't wait to do art at the middle school and the high school. I'll get to do art, fun things like I do with Miss Hastings, and it's going to continue for them. Again, Sonia is really great platform for connecting with families. Social media post. I post on Twitter all the time with stuff of it doesn't even have to be done. It can just be started, and it creates awareness that your program even exists. And that's how you generate support. Go to the next slide. Those are images of my tweets. And next slide. One opportunity I want to share with y'all, even if you're not art teachers, I applied for and received a scholarship through the National Gallery of Art in Washington, D.C. They have scholarships. They have a teacher institute every year. It's very affordable to begin with, but I got a $2,000 scholarship. It paid for my housing, my travel, my food, waived all my fees. And what's great about it is they have 2 scholarships. One is for all the teachers in the country, and the second one is just for Kentucky teachers. I was only one of about, I'd say about only a third of us in our group of 50-ish were art teachers. The rest of them were anything from a special ed teacher from Alaska to a math teacher in Georgia, PE teachers, and it was really amazing. I'm sure lots of museums have similar programs. Anything that you can link and network, like through that program, I was able to network with one of the board members for the National Art Educators Association. He's on their board, and I feel like now if I had a specific question, I have someone that I can get information from directly. I think that's it.
That's awesome, Emily. I think that's so important to network. I think you all do a great job of networking with other art teachers too. And, you know, there's been years, I know when I was growing up, there were years where they were talking about taking away art programs and music programs. And that's always been kind of something that is threatened. And I think it was at the Innovation Summit we were at Grec. And it may have been Dr. Bathon who was saying, if we wanted to see where true project-based learning and, this trend, we should just go down to the art rooms and the music rooms, because they've never stopped doing those things and they are masters at it. And it's so true. And all the years where we and other content areas have gone away from that type of learning with students, these teachers have honed that ability and gotten better at it and connected it to 21st century skills. And they're just rolling right along kind of quietly in their art rooms. But these 2 teachers are master teachers for anyone. And I think it's really important, no matter what you teach, to get outside of your content area and stop looking at what you do every day. Look at what other people do and how you can incorporate that into your classroom. So y'all do an amazing job. Thank you so much for joining us today. Does anybody have any questions for them before we wrap up?
Whitney, I think we have a couple comments on the chat from Chris Lacey. It looks like he says Canva and Adobe Spark are the bomb. So he thinks they're awesome as well. And he says, if you don't have the money for PS, check Paint.P for OS X. So I don't know what that means.
Okay, instead of Photoshop, Paint.net, okay. Different program to do Photoshop kind of stuff. And Photoshop, the pricing for that has changed. So like we used to have it on a lot of computers. We have it on like 2 computers. So I loaned it out to Emily, and we kind of hoard that one computer that has Photoshop in our district on it. But Paint.net, he says, and GIMP, GIMP. I've never heard of that, so I'll check that out. Okay, so I'm going to throw it to Elaine and Heather, who are going to talk about our next shows coming up in February. Is that right, ladies? Okay, before I'll come back to that at the end. Let me go. Oh, you put an extra? Let's see here. Do we have the extra slides? Let me see. I'm sorry. Hold on. There we go. There we go.
There we go. So we have a February series coming up, and if you are not familiar with what February is focused on, it's digital learning, and we are going to focus on digital learning in Kentucky schools. So Heather is going to talk about some library media specialists that are going to be on our show. And
that's right, Elaine. So we're really excited. On February 18th, we are going to feature an innovative Library Media Center program from Norton Commons Elementary School. So we'll have the principal and the library media specialists on our show. This is going along with our new Lead from the Library Kentucky hashtag, and we have a new playlist on KentuckyGoDigital.com just for innovative library media programs in Kentucky. So check out the Lead from the Library Kentucky playlist new to KentuckyGoDigital.com. And Elaine, talk about our special guest on February 25th.
Yes, on February 25th, Whitney, will you go 2 slides ahead for me? We have so there's our library media specialists, and we have Donnie Percy, who is going to join us. He is going to be teaching us how to create our very own Google expeditions. So if you have not gotten to know Donnie at all or even heard of him, he is very famous about his abilities and his brilliance in Google tools. And he recently was able to go to an expedition himself in Antarctica. And so he is going to share with us how to create our own Google expeditions for our students or for ourselves. So I'm excited to announce that he's going to be joining us on a show in the end of February. So
I'm so excited about that. I just got a camera, and I've always loved Donnie, and he showed the 360 camera, and I've don't know how to really use it yet. So I'm excited to learn. That'll be awesome. All right. Letitia and or Courtney, you want to talk about how people can connect with KY Go Digital?
Sure. Always, follow the hashtag on Twitter, and check out our Facebook, KY Go Digital, and the YouTube channel, of course, has always some previous episodes that you want to check out. If you're an administrator, teacher, underneath the different playlists, I'm sure there's something that will push you and help you learn and help you create awesome opportunities for your kids.
All right, so we're looking forward to, I think we're going to be announcing some regional dates probably pretty soon. I'm hearing the rumblings of the summer regionals coming, so look for that. And just remember to keep hashtagging KY Go Digital. Thanks everybody for joining us today. Until next time, bye.
Get involved with Kentucky Go Digital. Attend regional events, like us on Facebook, subscribe to our YouTube channel, or follow us on Twitter.